Can you give us a little background who you are and what you do?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Najib Aswad. I'm Islamic finance advisor, trainer and Shariah auditor. I've been in the Islamic finance space for over 15 years, alhamdulillah, and had the opportunity to work in Islamic finance consultancy projects in 50 plus countries. And alhamdulillah, this is something that Allah has enabled me to be in this space, and I hope and pray inshallah this will be of benefit for the viewers of this.
Amazing. And Najib, how do you see AI changing Sharia governance and compliance in Islamic finance?
Okay, interesting. We are today in the IFDI Conference and the theme was about AI in Islamic finance. And I've heard today one of the Sharia scholars saying, as of today and maybe never in the future, we should think of AI doing or issuing a fatwa, right? Having said that, it has already been used in terms of supporting the Sharia scholars, especially in Sharia compliance departments. For instance, when they are doing a certain fatwa, they are uploading all their repository of pronouncements, Sharia standards. So it's helped supporting them in building the arguments, but it has to be reviewed, from a Sharia point of view. So the Sharia advice and support, it has been facilitating this process. Also for Sharia audit, it has been, already used. I think today Nizam Bank mentioned their Sharia compliance department are using actually this in this. Few years ago, there was also Dubai Islamic Bank, I believe they also said they have like any mufti internally for answering Sharia compliance. So I see this as the immediate use cases. And also I think one of the banks also mentioned they use AI in terms of customer service to explain the product structures, including Sharia features as well.
Do you think that AI will reduce the cost and complexity of issuing Sukuk, and if so, how?
That's a good question. I mean, we've always heard of attempts to standardize Sukuk in terms of and reducing that cost. But the reality is Sukuk will always need some form of tailoring and making it bespoke. Again, today there was one question in the panels about, do you think we will have a time where with a press of a button we can produce a product? And I think one of the experts answered, yes, it's pretty much possible in the near future. I sort of agree that in the near future it's not going to happen, especially when you talk of sovereign sukuk and so on. But it will definitely help in standardizing and making things easier, or for at least in terms of the standardization of the documentation.
And what do you think the biggest misconception is for global investors with regards to Islamic finance?
Okay, depends. Are we talking about Muslim investors or non-Muslim investors? Because each have their own misconception.
Both.
For the non-Muslims, the biggest misconception of Islamic finance is only for Muslims, and I don't blame them for that, because sometimes the name does not tell the full story, and that's why we need to see a lot of movement towards saying ethical and Islamic finance. So it shows really what Islamic finance stands for. And in terms of the Muslim community, the biggest misconception is the simple line you always hear: Islamic and conventional finance are the same. They are not the same.
And what do you see as the biggest opportunities over the next 3 to 5 years for Islamic finance and Islamic fintech?
Well, in Islamic finance is very country specific, to be honest with you. In some jurisdictions, like for instance Uzbekistan, they're just starting their journey now, and their biggest opportunity really is starting with Islamic banking. There is nothing. There is people who have simple current accounts are not there. But for developed markets like the UK, Islamic fintech are definitely on the rise. I see a lot of opportunities in property finance. I see a lot of opportunities in car finance, credit consumer finance, and also business finance or SME finance.
Amazing. And Najib, how can people find out more about your organization?
So I run 2 companies. I have the IFCAB, which is an Islamic Finance Capacity and Advisory Bureau, company focused on Islamic finance consultancy and training. And I have another company, which is the Sharia Audit Group, which is, I believe, the world's first only Sharia audit provider, trying to push the agenda of independent Sharia audits for companies. We are available on LinkedIn, and people can reach out on our websites as well. It's ifcab.org and shariaag.com, and my LinkedIn profile, Najib Aswad.
Amazing. Thanks a lot.
Hayakum Allah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Could you tell us about who you are and your organization?
Yeah, Farrukh Raza, CEO, Islamic Finance Advisory and Assurance Services, or otherwise known as IFAAS.
Amazing. And Farrukh, we're here today at the AAOIFI Conference Day 2 in Bahrain. How have you found the conference so far?
Well, the conference, as usual, is very well attended, and I found the topic this time, the main theme of the conference being very interesting, the role of artificial intelligence in Islamic finance and the potential impact that it may have. So there has been a good debate since yesterday, and we are looking forward to the outcome of the conference.
Amazing. And Farrukh, we're talking about AI at this conference, and AI has become a big hot topic in not just Islamic finance, but globally. But with regards to Islamic finance, how do you see AI changing Sharia governance and compliance in Islamic finance?
Well, as you know, this is a very sensitive topic, and a lot of people are very excited, including myself. But there are also valid concerns around, how AI will be actually managing the Sharia governance. So, yesterday, in the session that I moderated, there was a gentleman making a comment that AI is replacing the Sharia governance, people working in Sharia governance, and that's not true. This is not about replacing people or instead of having Sharia scholars or the Sharia technicians, we will start having the artificial intelligence. It's actually making things easier, more streamlined, and making them helping the industry mitigate the Sharia non-compliance risks. So I believe that artificial intelligence will play a big role in making Islamic finance, inshallah, hopefully more Islamic, implementing the standards in a better way, and having the systems more integrated to make sure that Sharia governance and compliance is actually embedded within all the products and all the operations.
Where do you draw the line between AI assistance and decision making that require human Sharia scholars?
I think the line is very clear for me. So any decision shall come, from Sharia scholars, and that shall always be the case. However, all the groundwork and the implementation work, that can be easily done and monitored by artificial intelligence. So this is not about making Sharia decision. This is about facilitating the Sharia decision, extracting and providing all the required information for the right decision to be made, and then helping implement it correctly.
Amazing. And Farrukh, do you think AI will reduce the cost and complexity of issuing Sukuk? If so, how?
Well, I think this is yet to be seen. Definitely there will be an impact on Sukuk as well, but how much that will be creating a cost efficiency, that I think is too early to say. So it's not only about the cost of Sharia compliance of a Sukuk, but there's also legal cost and many other things as well. So over time it may create some efficiency, but it's more like creating the the environment that's more conducive, and it facilitates the structuring and the issuance and the trading of Sukuk. Overall, I think over time it will create some cost efficiency, but not in the immediate future.
And Farrukh, just two more questions. Do you think AAOIFI Sharia Standard 62 will lead to more authentic Sukuk market, or do you think it will cause disruption in the short term?
Well, I don't know what is disruption, but in my view, Standard 62 is very much required, is the need of time. The industry has to move on from where we have been stuck for, I think, more than a decade now. There is a need for better Sharia governance, for more transparency, and making things, more workable for everyone. So Sharia Standard 62 is not for, disrupting the market or creating issues or causing harm to the industry. It's actually there to facilitate and to harmonize and to make it more transparent and make it more accessible for the masses.
Amazing. And Farrukh, where do you see the biggest opportunity for Islamic finance or Islamic fintech over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think we are at the cusp of an unprecedented opportunity where Islamic fintechs, leveraging the technology, and especially now with the artificial intelligence, have the opportunity to appeal not only to the wider Muslim communities but also to the non-Muslim population around the world, because this has taken down the barriers of entry, and the legacy institutions, the cost that they had involved in running their operations, etc., is no longer required, and the fintechs are actually providing a much leaner opportunity, a much better option, and solutions to the general public and also to the businesses. So I believe this opportunity is almost worldwide, and they can actually appeal to Muslims and non-Muslims alike.
Amazing. And Farrukh, how can people find out about your organization?
Well, www.ifaas.com, IFAAS.com.
And how can people reach out to you?
They can catch me on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Farrukh. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Of course, my name is Mustafa Adil. I'm the head of Islamic finance for the London Stock Exchange Group. And the London Stock Exchange Group is a key facilitator and market infrastructure provider for the financial services industry and specifically for the Islamic finance industry. We are the largest listers of Sukuks, dollar-denominated Sukuks globally. We're one of the largest listers of funds in the world. We provide information terminals that have information and data related to Islamic finance. And we are also a key trading platform for Islamic and Sharia compliant instruments.
Amazing. And you just published the Islamic Finance Indicator report. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. The Islamic Finance Development Indicator is our collaboration with the Islamic Corporation for the Development of the Private Sector, ICD. It's a report that has been going on for 13 years now, and it attempts to showcase the development of the Islamic finance industry across multiple metrics. So we look at different components, including the financial performance of Islamic finance sectors like Islamic banking, takaful, sukuk, funds, and other Islamic financial institutions. But we also look at the ecosystem. So we look at the governance landscape that exists globally. We look at the knowledge and the awareness that exists. And also, increasingly, a critical part of the Islamic finance industry is the sustainability component. So we look at the development of ESG considerations, disclosures, ESG plus Islamic assets, and so on. So the Islamic finance industry real indicator attempts to provide a holistic overview of the development of the Islamic finance industry globally and also in different markets and regions.
Amazing. And Mustafa, the IFDI shows the industry is growing again this year. But is Islamic finance improving in quality, or is it just getting bigger?
So this is the challenge that that always exists, right? Are we focused purely on growth of assets, growth of institutions, or are we looking to align closer with Sharia? And I think realistically you have to follow both approaches, right? There's no point having a industry that is extremely aligned with Sharia but that doesn't have any reach, that doesn't have any penetration, doesn't have any assets, and is ultimately not able to have any impact on society, right? Whereas on the other hand, we don't want to have an exact carbon copy of the conventional industry with all of its failings and challenges either. So I think we have to draw a middle path. We have to look at the development of assets, the growth of assets, but at the same time, we also have to look at aligning the industry closer with Sharia. And I think year by year, we're making good progress on both fronts. Not only are assets increasing, but increasingly the new standards and regulations that are coming out from institutions like IOFI are helping to push and drive the industry into a purer and more Sharia compliant version of itself.
And Mustafa, Islamic finance is still concentrated in a few countries. Why is it so hard for new markets to join and grow this industry?
So initially, it's always a challenge. And when you think about it, for a market that is completely and entirely based on a interest-based lending system, where everything from your legislation to your regulations to how banks operate to how they hold assets, how they hold customer deposits, all of that ecosystem is built around purely an interest-based lending. It is obviously going to be very difficult to transition away from that, right? Usually what happens is institutions, facilitate the launch of, let's say, an Islamic asset provider, Islamic lending provider, so on, right? But unless you address the core issue, the ecosystem, the legislative and regulatory framework, you're not going to be able to make significant dent, right? And this is something that we have learned. So the market, how it is in Southeast Asia, how it is in GCC, did not happen overnight, right? There's decades of learning, there's decades of development. First, we developed the deposit-taking sector. So how, sharing this idea with depositors on how their contributions are supporting the economic development and the economic activities of the banks. Then we started lending to the corporates, we started lending to the sovereigns. Then we looked at capital markets, how we mobilize Sharia-sensitive capital to help corporates and sovereigns to grow their economic agenda. Then we created takaful on the insurance side. So these things take time. And although new markets now have an easier path because there's so much learning in the market, it still has to go through a legislative cycle, a regulatory cycle to get to a point where the broader ecosystem doesn't impede the development of Islamic finance, but can help facilitate and act as an enabler for that development.
Amazing. I just have two more questions, Mustafa. The first one of the last of the two is we've seen record Sukuk issuance this year, but some say some structures look too similar to conventional debt. Do you think AAOIFI Sharia Standard 62 will force a reset?
So I think the reason that AAOIFI Sharia Standard 62 conversation started was because of exactly the point that you've referenced, right? When we look at the development of the Sukuk market, right, how different is it from conventional? But not just how different is it from conventional, but when we say it is an asset-backed or asset-aligned institution, is there recourse to the assets in question, right? So this is a key challenge that exists. Now, on the other side, there are challenges from a recourse perspective, right? How do you create an instrument that has asset recourse but is still debt aligned and treated like a debt instrument? How do you deal with sovereigns who have legislation against transfer of assets or even potential transfer of assets, right? There's a number of questions that have to be addressed. So again, I think this is a key area where we need to balance the needs of the industry and the continued growth of industry with the Sharia compliant nature, right? Obviously, when IOFI proposed Standard 62, there was a market concern against that. IOFI has acknowledged that, and IOFI is working with stakeholders like they do with every standard they issue. IOFI doesn't issue standards out of the blue that the market is unaware of or unprepared for. IOFI has consultations with central banks, with institutions, with others. They take the feedback back. They have public disclosures. They have public workshops as well. They take all of that insight. So I'm sure that once Standard 62 is finalized and once it is launched, it is something that will help to push the industry in the right direction without becoming a hurdle for the industry.
Amazing. And Mustafa, we're at the AAOIFI Conference in Bahrain, and the theme this year is on AI. AI is becoming a big theme in Islamic finance. From your perspective, what changes do you think AI will bring to the industry?
Oh, I think it's going to be fundamental changes to the industry, right? Artificial intelligence allows us to do things that we previously could not do at an economic, sustainable level across institutions, right? I think that AI will change the way that we look at Sharia compliance and how Sharia audits are done. AI can provide us live audit scoring and Sharia reviews of different products and services rather than having for them to happen at the end of the year or anything like that. Artificial intelligence can fundamentally change the way that corporates and businesses report. And why that is important is because when we learn about Islamic finance, we learn about profit and risk sharing, we learn about participating in economic activity, right? But it's very difficult to know how that is going to be done in practice, right? Corporates issue the financial institutions once a year. How do you make sure that your funds are going to the right thing that they're supposed to and so on? Artificial intelligence can change that. So if you rather than doing a murabaha or commodity murabaha with a corporate, you can actually do a musharaka that can be tracked in real time using data, using receipts, using sales, connected to the ERP systems of these different corporates and providing live feed as to exactly what is the return on your share of that investment. So, I think it can help us create a hybrid debt structure of equity and debt. You can target funds to individual projects or to individual contracts. You can track the return of those funds. You can track the profit that is generated from that. So the theory of Islamic finance that we read about in books before we get into the industry, that it should be profit and risk sharing, there should be risk and rewards of ownership and so on. I think artificial intelligence can actually bring us there because it can make it possible for us to implement that on a day-to-day basis in our transactions.
Fantastic. And Mustafa, how can people access and read the IFDI reports?
So the IFDI report is available for free online. You can access it from lseg.com. Just select under the tab, the Business Islamic Finance. It is highlighted as the flagship report. You can access it from zawiya.com, go to Islamic Finance Reports, and it is there as well. And we highly encourage everyone to go through it and to see the insights that are there. And we hope it will help inspire the industry to continue to develop and better itself.
And finally, Mustafa, what's the best way to reach you and the team at LSEG?
So you can reach us through lseg.com. You can identify from the Islamic Finance page, there's a Contact Us tab, so you can reach us on that. You can reach us through Zawiya Contact Us page, and if you want to reach me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Myself and my team are available there. Mustafa Adil on LinkedIn. Send me a message, I'll respond straight away and would be happy to help. Our role and our purpose is to help support the development of the industry through the provision of data and information. So any role that we can play in that, we would be happy to work with or partner with anybody that meets that objective.
Amazing. Thanks, Mustafa.
Thank you.